Part 2 of the employee benefits. So as a review of the previous lesson that we had before about employee benefits. So employee benefits are all forms of consideration that are given by an entity in exchange for services rendered by employees or for the termination of employment. So, all forms of consideration tanang klase sa pwede natong mahatag sa atong employees because of their the performance of their jobs, the service they rendered, or because they are terminated. So, employees here would include not only the rank and file but also the directors and management personnel. So the employee benefits would include the post-employment benefits. We have the short-term benefits and then other long-term benefits and even the termination benefits. So what is focused here in employee benefits is more on the post-employee benefits. So the post-employment benefits are the employee benefits other than the termination benefits and short-term employee benefits which are payable after the completion of employment. So most of the time, this would be referred to as the retirement because that is after your employment. So retirement benefits like pensions and lump sum payments on retirement. Aside from that, it may be a post-employment life insurance or a post-employment medical care. Pero ang common good is on pensions for retirement as part of the retirement plan. So most post-employment benefits are formal arrangement between their entity and the employees, and these are established as part of the remuneration package. Apil na siya sa sabot sa pagpasweldo sa compensation sa tuang employees. Some post-employment benefits are also informal, as evidenced only by the entity's practice to pay post-employment benefits. So, not all the time there's a formal agreement, but in some cases, depende lang sa practice sa company. Unsa man ang ilahang usual way in providing for the retirement or the other post-employment nga benefits. The plans may also be established by law whereby entities are required to contribute to national benefit plans. So the post-employment benefit plans can either be a defined contribution plan or a defined benefit plan. It could also be contributory or non-contributory, funded or unfunded. When we say contributory nga plan, both the employer and the employee will contribute in the retirement benefit. So there's counterpart from employee and then there's part of the employer. But they do not necessarily contribute equal amounts. So ano lang from the term nga contributory naa sila gihatag nga contribution both parties. Then for non-contributory, it is where only the employer makes the contribution. So it is non-contributory on the part of the employee. Okay? So non-contributory on the part of the employee only. Kay kung dili isa mo contribute sa employer, walay mahatag nga benefits sa employee, di ba? So this is only non-contributory on the part of the employee. If it's contributory, it means that employee will also contribute. If it is a funded nga plan, okay, the entity sets aside funds for future retirement benefits by making payments to a funding agency like a trustee bank or an insurance company. And this funding agency will be the one to accumulate the funds. Siya may collect ito and accumulate and make payments to the retired employees when the benefits become due. That's for the funded plan. If it is unfunded, the entity retains the obligation for the payment of the retirement benefits without the establishment of a separate fund. Okay, so if funded, there's a separate entity who will manage the fund and who will be the one to distribute or make the payments to your retired employees. If it's unfunded, it means that the entity, your employer, will be the one to manage the fund and wala siya separate wala siya fund wala siya fund. If it's unfunded, wala siya fund nga establish pero siya ang mubayad sa mga employees for the retirement. Kay unfunded man, so wala gi-establish nga fund or separate nga fund. Then, as mentioned earlier, diba, the post-employment benefit can be classified as defined contribution or a defined benefit plan. Okay, so if you can still recall, but if it is defined contribution, this means that the contribution is the one being defined or certain. So maoy kabalo na ta kung pila gyud ang contribution. Mana defined, gidefine na ang contribution. So if it's a defined contribution plan, it is a post-employment benefit plan under which an entity pays fixed contributions into a separate entity known as the fund. So here, the contributions are fixed. It's defined na. Okay? So the entity makes a specific or definite amount of contribution to a separate fund without specifying the retirement benefit to be received by the employee. So the contribution is definite, certain, fixed, yeah, but the benefit here is indefinite. Okay? Wala ta ka ba kung pila ang ma-receive sa employee. On the other hand, if we talk about defined benefit, okay, defined benefit plan, so it is a post-employment plan that is not a defined contribution plan, of course. Kung dili siya defined contribution, then that's a defined benefit. So here, the entity's obligation is to provide agreed benefits to the employee. So here, the benefit of the employees are definite, but the contribution is indefinite. So opposite siya sa defined contribution. Here, the benefit katong ma-receive is defined or certain, pila ang amount, but the contributions to be made are indefinite. So in this case, the entity must make contributions such that the contribution plus the earnings in that contribution, diba, magpundo man siya, kay mo, dabay pa man nagpila ka years, diba, before mo retire si employee, so mamundo si employer. So dapat ang iyahang i-contribute dito plus the income coming from those contribution should be enough to provide for the future retirement benefits. So therefore, the entity here or the employer will assume the investment risk in a defined benefit plan because whatever happens, diba, kinahanglan ma-provide tung gi-agree nga benefit. Okay, dahil dapat maka-receive of 2 million si employee after retirement. So, dapat ma-meet gyud 2 million. So, si entity na ang bahala nga mangitag paagi to meet the target. Unlike sa defined contribution nga plan, kabalo nakapila imuhang i-contribute. Kabalo nakapila imuhang i-put up. Pero, unsure pa what will be the future nga value, pila man ang mahimong amount nga ma-accumulate in the future nga pwede natong mahatag sa ato ang employee. Okay, so that's for the defined contribution and defined benefit plan. So this is the continuation. This is the accounting for the defined benefit plan. Okay, so if you have already read this in advance, na ay mga formula involved, diba? So na ay daghang ma-compute ani. So let's go to the overview in the defined benefit plan. Again, there is an agreed benefit between the employer and the employee. So again, the benefit is defined. So kabalo na si employee unsa man iyahang ma-expect in the future. So the employer here will bear the risk that the promised benefits will cost more than expected if actuarial or investment experience is worse than expected. So in such cases, the related obligation may need to be increased. So the accounting for defined benefit plans is complex because of the actuarial assumptions. So what is this actuarial assumptions? Ano man ang actuarial? Manginahanglan taog actuary. So si actuary ang specialist or ang expert. Okay? So unsa man na siya what would be involved in actuarial or actuarial assumptions. So kani siya most common ni siya if we're talking about actuarial, if it involves kanang katong mga investment risk with regards to insurance. Okay, so mga insurance like before, I have read in an article nga katong there was a hurricane ba to or twister ba to siya sa US, and then they need the expertise of an actuary to determine how much should be the insurance nga bayaran adtong mga nasalanta adtong murag ipo-ipo man siguro to siya or hurricane ba to siya. Okay, so if we're talking about actuary or actuarial, so this is mostly include the making of analysis or statistics related to mga insurance. Okay? Insurance, finance, those that involves mga uncertainty. Okay. So here, kay wala man ta kay baw unsa may pwedeng mahitabo in the future. So we have to estimate. So na ay mga statistics. So there would be actuarial assumption in order to measure the obligation on a discounted basis. Because there are so many things that may happen in the future, diba? So pwede nga the employees may not survive, may not continue work, or there may be layoffs, or there may be mga forced retirement, or pwede po ma-fire out siya. So kinahanglan ta nga maka-estimate more reliably. That's why we have this actuarial services nga to ang pwedeng i-acquire so that we can measure the obligation properly, because diba in the future bayaran man na nato nya og masayop ta sa ato ang estimate layo ra kaayo sa actual, so basig magkalisod na taog apas diba sa ato ang obligation. So this will result to actuarial gains or losses because of the complex nga actuarial assumptions. Also, the retirement benefit cost is not necessarily equal to the contribution due for the period. Okay, so this accounting for defined benefit plan will involve the following steps. First is to determine if there is a deficit or a surplus. In other books, they call this difference not a deficit or a surplus, but they call this one prepaid benefit cost. And we also have the what was the term? So if it is surplus, so ang tawag nila is prepaid benefit cost, and if it is deficit, it is an accrued benefit cost. So how do we know if there is a surplus or there is a deficit? You compare the two. You compare the present value of the defined benefit obligation, or this DBO is also called as the projected benefit obligation. So if namoy mahinagbuan nga PBO, na projected benefit obligation. So maura na siya sa DBO, projected benefit obligation. Okay. So the present value of the DBO, so you can make this shortcut para mabuo ra siya, versus the fair value of the plan assets, if any. So what is this present value of DBO? That's the obligation of the entity for the accumulated retirement benefits earned by employees to date. So this is determined using actuarial valuation method called as the projected unit credit method, which is discussed later on, which will be discussed later on, or if you have read in advance, so it was already mentioned in a later part. And we have the FVPA, fair value of the plan assets. So this is the balance of any fund set aside for the payment of retirement benefits. Because diba remember na mag-contribute man si employer para na siya mabayad sa employee in the future kung mo retire na siya. So how do we know if surplus or deficit? So if the FVPA is less than the present value of DBO, there's a deficit. Nanong deficit man siya, kulang raman ang ato ang fund. 'Di ba? Kulang atong fund to be able to pay for the retirement benefits, because this is your retirement benefit, 'di ba? Present value of your accumulated retirement benefits. But if your FVPA is greater, then there's a surplus. So sobra. Second step after you get the deficit or the surplus is to determine the net defined benefit liability or asset. So if there's a deficit, there's a net defined benefit liability. So ito akong i-mention ganiha in other books. If it is a deficit, they call this as the accrued benefit cost. Okay. And if it is a surplus, it's a prepaid. Okay. Or here, it is called as net defined benefit liability if it's a deficit, and if it's a surplus, that is a net defined benefit asset, or this is the prepaid benefit cost. Because in case nga you will be answering problems and you cannot find these terms sa problem, then you can refer to the other terminology. So if there is a surplus, then the net defined benefit asset is the lower of the surplus and the asset ceiling. And the asset ceiling is the present value of the economic benefits available in the form of refunds from plan or reductions in the future contributions to the plan. So lower if both of these are given. Then we have the determination of the net defined benefit cost. So the defined benefit cost will be computed as follows. First, you need to get the service cost, which includes the current service cost, past service cost, and any gain or loss on settlement. Then we have the net interest on net defined benefit liability. So that includes the interest cost on the DBO, interest income on the plan assets, and interest on the effect of the asset ceiling. Both of these service costs and the interest, okay, will be recognized in the profit or loss. Okay, so these are part of the profit or loss. While the remeasurements of the net defined benefit liability or asset will be recognized in the OCI, and it includes the actuarial gains and losses, the difference between interest income on plan assets and the return on the plan assets, difference between the interest in the effect of the on the effect of the asset ceiling and change in the effect of the asset ceiling. And then that will be your total defined benefit cost. Okay. So, let's go to each of the components. Kay daghan kaayo siya og sulod. Pero if you can familiarize the components for each portion, then it would be easier na siya. Dali na siya matiman-an. Because how they present it in the problem is not in paragraph form, but usually it's on listed na siya. So, naanay, I mentioned dito what will be the current service cost, mga past service cost. So, ikaw na yung bahala maggrupo adtong items nga apil sa computation. Okay. So let's go to each of the components. So for the service cost, it includes the current service cost, then past service cost, and the gain or loss on settlement. So first is the current service cost. That's the increase in the PV of DBO resulting from the employee service in the current period. So that's for the current niya nga employment. So the employee's retirement benefit increases as he or she renders service. So sa sigit siyang trabaho mo sige po kasaka iyahang benefit. So the employee who has rendered 20 years of service of course would have a higher retirement benefit than somebody who rendered only 10 years of service, assuming they have similar position and salary levels. Current service cost represents the increase in the employee's retirement benefit because of the services he or she has rendered during the current year. If we talk about the past service cost, that is the change, the same change in the PV of the DBO for employee service in prior periods resulting from a plan amendment or curtailment. And what is this plan amendment and curtailment? So plan amendment, it happens when the entity introduces or withdraws a defined benefit plan or changes the benefits payable under an existing defined benefit plan, or in short, there are changes in the plan. Mo na siya na plan amendment. If we talk about curtailment, that is when an entity significantly reduces the number of employees covered by a plan. So it may arise from an isolated event such as closing of a plant, discontinuance of an operation, or termination of or suspension of a plan. Okay, so man siya si curtailment and plan amendment. So this has an effect on the present value of DBO arising from the prior periods nga mga service. Mao na siya nga past service cost. Okay, from prior niya nga services. So past service costs, whether these are vested or unvested, is recognized immediately as an expense when the plan amendment or curtailment occurs, or when the entity recognizes related restructuring costs or termination benefits, whichever comes earlier. While unvested past service costs are not deferred and amortized. So past service costs can be positive when PV of DBO increases. Okay, pag musaka ang present value, okay, sa DBO, positive siya. Pero negative siya if the PV of DBO decreases. Okay? Then we have gains or loss on settlement. Okay, so this is the third component, diba? So this arises when the employer's obligation to provide benefits is eliminated other than from the payment of benefits according to the terms of the plan. So again, employer's obligation to provide benefits is eliminated. Okay, so gain or loss on settlement is the difference between the PV of DBO being settled as determined on the date of settlement and the settlement price, including any planned assets transferred and any payments made. So again, in short, that's the difference between the PV of DBO and the settlement price. So this will be recognized when there is a settlement, 'di ba? Pag nibayad na. Kay natural, 'di ba? Yun sa man pagkaibaw sa gain or loss sa settlement kung walay settlement. The next part is, 'di ba, we have the after the service costs. Okay, di ba? We have the net interest. So, puro siya mga interest. So, interest cost, interest income, and interest on the effect of the asset ceiling. So, puro ni siya interest. Net interest is a change in net defined benefit liability or asset during the period that arises from the passage of time. It comprises of the three items, itong mentioned above. They will bear same discount rate. Okay, so whether katong interest cost, interest income, unya katong interest, so ito siya term ato, sa ceiling, okay, interest on the effect of ceiling, okay. So, tanawa, pag interest cost siya, that's related to the DBO, kay mao man ni siya ang liability. So, ang pares niya is katong cost. If it's the planned asset, remember this is the fund, so this would be an asset, so that is income. Okay? Para di maglibog. So, parehas na siya interest tong tulo. And what is the basis for your discount? That's based on the high quality corporate bonds, or in the absence thereof, it would be the government bonds determined at the start of the annual reporting period. Then the third part, 'di ba, sa computation ganiha are the remeasurements, and it comprises of the following. You have the actuarial gains and losses. So actuarial gains or losses, these are changes in the PV of DBO resulting from changes in actuarial assumptions. Excuse me. So, actuarial assumptions, these are estimates of variables used in determining the ultimate cost of providing post-employment benefits. This includes the demographic assumptions and financial assumptions. And what are these demographic assumptions? Like employee turnover rate, mortality or lifespan, and health conditions. So, nga kung ngon ganiha nga, di ba, dili ta kay makaibaw kung naabay daghang mga resign, nabay mass, sa tawag na, mass termination na siya, or na tsugi bang empleyado, or na sakit ba siya, so wala na siya nag-work. Apres karon, di ba, na mga retrenchments, so dili ta mahibaw. So, muna nga naatay actuarial gains and losses. If that's on demographics, so man siya more on the characteristics of the population, di ba? If it's about financial, then that's on the discount rate, future salary levels, and future medical costs. Because the salaries would increase. Most likely mo increase ang salary. Dili man fixed ang increase, but there would be an increase because of course the employer will also look at the present economic situation, di ba? Pag magtaas ang mga pamaliton, of course, as tapod ilang services or goods po mo taas po siya, and dapat po mo commensurate po na siya sa salary po sa employee. So, ang salaries po na ay mga adjustments. So, mag-anam o kasaka ang salary. So, that would also bear an effect on the future retirement benefit. Labi na kung ang retirement benefit is based on salaries. And also future medical costs. Demographic assumptions pertain to the employee, while the financial assumptions pertain to money matters. And the discount rate used in measuring defined benefit obligations and costs is based on, again, high quality corporate bonds. PAS 19 encourages but does not require involving a qualified actuary in measuring defined benefit obligations. So, kaning actuary, so mauto siya itong mag-perform sa statistics, mga estimates. But, wala man gi-require, so wala na siya gipugos sa PAS 19 nga dapat na kay IHAR. But in practice, the actuarial valuations are usually done every every 3 years. Then, part of the remeasurements, we have the return on plan assets. So, this is the investment income earned by the plan assets during the year after deducting the cost of managing fund and taxes. Remember the plan asset nga gi-mention ganiha, di ba, na ay DBO katong ato ang present value sa ato ang retirement benefits nga ibayad sa empleyado. Nya, di ba maggama man pud ta og pundo, di ba dito man nato i-accumulate ang money unya motubo siya. So mo na i-accumulate nato para motubo siya para naati enough nga pangbayad. Adyo na naman to mo increase siya para in the future mudako ang fund natin ikabayad sa to ang empleyado. So naay mga investment income sa fund. So man siya na return on plan assets. So net na ni siya sa cost sa fund. Managing the fund and also the taxes. So here is an illustration. Okay, saan to balik ta sa katong formula. Okay. So we have actuarial gains and losses. You have difference on the interest income on plan assets and return. Mani siya to na return on plan assets. Then, interest on the effect of the asset ceiling and change in the effect of the asset ceiling. So, let's go to the first illustration here. Okay, so mao niya akong giingon nga basta nga ni ang problem about sa benefit obligation, usually nakalist down na ng given. So, dili na siya narrative o forma. So, you have the PV of DBO at the beginning of the year, also at the end of the year, also the FVPA at the beginning of the year, and the FVPA at the end of the year. Then you have the current service cost, actuarial gain, return on plan assets, discount rate. So if we already familiarize again the formula, we will know asa naman nato siya ipamutang. Okay, so first is what is the deficit and the surplus. As you can observe, diba, we are using the year-end amounts. But the difference between the FVPA and the PBO, it's advantage on our part if the FVPA is greater kay surplus man siya, diba, mas labaw man na to ang pundo kaysa to ang obligation. So here, at the end of the year, the FVPA is 1,310,000 while the PV of DBO is 1,800,000. So there's a deficit of 490,000. So kaniya to ang tulubagon sa tong employees, but our fund is 1,310,000 only. So na ay kulang 490,000. So mao na siya ato ang apason, di ba? So net defined benefit liability. So that's the deficit. So this is presented in the non-current liabilities section of the company's SFP. So kaning 490 nga deficit. So the net defined benefit liability in the preceding year is, so last year, so based on the beginning balance, so you have 1,200,000 and 1,500,000. So, 300,000 ra. So, at the end of the year, nahimo na siyang 490. So, next is determine the defined benefit cost. What is the defined benefit cost here? So, you have, again, service cost. Then, you have the net interest on net defined benefit liability. So, we just extract the items that are given na amay current service cost pero wala tong ubang items. So, of course, mura pala tong i-appeal. So, 325,000. For the net interest, what is given here is, wala man na siya gi-compute daan, but you will use the same discount rate. You multiply this by the DBO og sa plan asset. Unsa man nga DBO og sa plan assets ang gigamit. This is 1.5 and 1.2. This is at the beginning of the year, di ba? So kani 5%, ya 5%. Pag sa DBO na siya gi-multiply cost, pag sa asset income. Nya tanawa diri kay ang interest cost, okay, gi-minus ang interest income, so the net interest on the net defined benefit is 15,000. Na naman ni siya nga gi-minus man ni siya ma'am kay income man siya. So kani siya puro ni siya mga costs. Kay kaning interest man mas labaw man ang interest cost ani. So therefore kani siya cost ni siya. So pareha sila og balance, di ba? Puro sila mga cost. And then the third part is the remeasurement. And again, kani sila nga duha ka items ani, adto na siya mabilong sa profit or loss. And the remeasurements will be part of the, asa ganito, OCI. What is given in the problem, we have the actuarial gain and losses. So you have 100,000 nga gain. Okay. Gain is siya kay naman siya parenthesis. Sakto ba? There is a given. Sa given, okay, gain. And then we have difference between the interest income on plan assets and the return on plan assets. Is amaning interest income on plan asset kani katong i-compute gani ha. Kani siya. Ya kaning return on plan assets ma'am isa man gikan. So given na siya. Okay, dara sa to. Dara, return on plan assets. So we have negative 150. Oh, sorry, negative 50. Then wala may given on the effect of the asset ceiling or change in the effect of asset ceiling. So we have 150 nga negative. So ano negative man ni siya? Because the items here are mga liabilities man, di ba? Mga gasto. Nya kani kay mga gains man ni siya og income, di ba? Income, gains and returns. Returns katong income nato. So or katong nabalik, di ba? So this is advantage on our part. This is also an advantage on our part. So this is a reduction. So if we sum up na to, i-check na to ha, 325 plus 15, 340 minus 150. And then that is 190. Pag ano ni ma'am, actuarial loss ni siya. So positive ni siya diri. Okay? So mag-minus silang duha. Okay? I-minus silang duha. I-minus ko na silang duha. I-minus ni mo ang 50. Okay, kani kay parehas man sila, so gi-add nato na siya. Ang effect niya is it reduces the defined benefit cost. So the defined benefit cost here is 190,000. So in the profit or loss section, you will find the 340,000 nga expense. Kani siya retirement benefits expense. And then the net defined benefit liability is 190. Okay? While the remeasurement, kani siya, remeasurement is credited to 150,000. And this will go to your OCI again and close to retained earnings rather than a accumulated separate equity account. Okay? So, daghan-daghan siya ang imuhang atiman daghan kag tan-awon. Pero maura po siya balik-balik nga formula nga magamit. Aside from asking about the defined benefit cost, mangutana sad sa problem kung pila man ang ending balance sa imuhang FVPA og sa PBO. Ay sorry, PBO. DBO man day gigamit ni DBO or PBO or DBO parehas na siya. Projected benefit obligation. Okay, so kani again reminder ka no. Remember the following. So pag labaw si FVPA kaysa PV of DBO, so nanubra ato ang asset, so surplus na siya. So therefore this is a defined benefit asset. Okay? And then we have pag opposite pod, if the FVPA is lesser than the PV of DBO, so kulang. Okay? So deficit. So that is a net defined benefit liability. And then your defined benefit cost is equal to your service cost plus the net interest, then plus or minus depende sa remeasurements. Okay? So, para sa ganiha, kay mga gains man to siya, mga advantage man to sa company, so, gi-deduct. So, makuhaan ang ato ang cost. Pero pag mga losses adto, so therefore, ma-add to siya. Okay, so how to get the PV of DBO? Sa problem ganiha, it's already given, di ba? Katong, so to siya, nanadiri ang January and December. So what if in the problem it's not given? Then therefore, we need to compute. So how do we compute? So you can use the T account for easier mastery. Mas ano man good, mas dali matiman-an pag mag T account ka kay kung kabalo na kadaan nga this is the normal balance, credit yun siya unyang effect pod ana ang account is a reduction because when you prepare the entries, ma-credit man pud siya or ma-debit siya, so mas dali siya mag-compute, mas dili ta mag-take time sa pag-memorize. Pero kung ano man siya pag para nako ra pud na siya ha, kung mag-computational form man gud ta, pwede na tong makalimtan tong mga items. Pero if we prepare a T account, as long as we know the journal entries, we will know asa ipamutang ang mga amounts. Bisan pa og wala ta kay bawo nga kana di ay kay ang panganday ana kay kanang for example, current service cost din na siya. So, bisan pag wata kay bawo kung siyang pangan, pero pag kabalot na nga ang inig journal entry, ang effect ana ang account is ma-credit siya. So, ibutang na to sa credit nga side. Okay? So, for the PV of DBO, so that would be beginning balance. So, kung computational form pa ni siya, kani sila tanan, gi-add. Diba? Puro na siya pang-add tanan. Na. Kana, nya kani, deduct. Nga naman, ma'am, because this has a credit balance. So, therefore, kung naani siya sa credit nga side, parehas man sila tanan, so, ipang-add na siya. Nya, diri, deduction po siya. Okay? So, man siya explanation here. Basta obligation, liability man na nato, so credit balance na siya. Nya kay costs man ni sila, so it will increase your liability. Diba magpares si expense o si liability. Magpares yun na sila. So, losses po o si liability. So, muna nyo timan-an. So, pag mga cost na siya, so, diba magpares mo yun na sila si, for example, interest, expense, credit, interest, payable. Diba? Pares yung si expense ug si liability. So, pag mo increase expense, mo increase po si liability niya. Kay mga costs man ni siya, so mo increase po na to ang liability. On the other hand, if there is a decrease in the PV of DBO, okay, there's an actuarial gain. Okay? Actuarial gain due to the decrease. Diba nga naman nga actuarial gain na nun siya, ma'am, hingubos man ang obligation, so na ay gain. Kanini, saka man ang obligation, so therefore, na ay loss. And then, if there are benefits being paid, this will reduce your obligation. Ganun naman tayo na pauna nga bayad, or na tayo na bayad. Okay, example. Okay, you have the present value. This is January 1. So, kabaw na nga basta gani obligation, credit side na siya. So, yung kani current service ko, si add. And then, discount rate, gamito ni siya to get the interest. Diba? Then, benefits paid. Bayad man siya, so kumakuaan. Okay, decrease in PVO. Niubos man ang PVO. So, diba, that's a gain. So, ato siya sa debit. Then, okay. So, diba, mas dali siya matiman-an. Okay ba kung dali ra ba niyo matiman? Pero para sa ako, dali na ko siya matiman-an pag ingon-an na magamit og T account. Para sa tong mag-compute kag pila may allowance for bad debts, di ba? Or pila man dapat ng accounts receivable, and then na yung mga write-offs, yung mga recovery. So, mas dali siya determine ang balancing figure kung magama og T account. Okay, for the BV of DBO, so mato siya, i-plot lang nato katong mga given. So, the interest cost, although this is not given, but this can be computed. 10% of the DBO. Again ha, ang pares gud pa sa interest cost katong obligation. Ayun ninyo siya baylo. Okay, so therefore, your ending balance is 102,000. Then, we have the current service cost. What if you are looking for the current service cost? Kani siya, makompute ni mo ni siya if given po ang ending balance. Pero pag wala ang ending balance, so saan mo na ito pag-compute, diba? So, itong balancing figure mo, ito ay ato ang gipangita. Kabalo na kita nga kani, credit yun siya, unya kani, debit. So, dapat opposite yun sila, diba? Kung dire imuhang normal balance sa credit, dapat tong balancing figure sa ending nasa pikas, dapat nasa debit. So, therefore, kung asset po na siya, kung prepaid na siya, prepaid niya, beginning balance, dapat nasa debit ang January 1, katong beginning, o niya dapat tong credit na sa credit, ang ending balance na sa credit nga side. Medyo nga man ma'am, di ba dapat kay ang ending balance kay dapat normal balance pa na siya. So, para man na siya mag-balance tong duha ka column. Okay? So, dapat man mag-balance to sila tong duha ka column. Kay ang dapat yun nga balancing figure at the end of the year, mauman to siya ang ending balance ana nga account. So, ato siya sa pikas nga side. Okay? Para mag-balance both debit and credit. So, ang buhaton na ako ana, kung ako pang magamaog ti account, so diba, PV of DBO, so nadiri si January 1, nya nadiri si December 31. Unya, kuhaon mo ang mga totals ana niya, okay, so naadiri. So therefore, imuhang balancing figure kanisiya. Okay, so kung given na siya, so ma-plot na nimo na siya diri. So dapat parehas gyud ni siya total para makuha nimo tong gipangita nga item samantong wala diri. So di ba naa may interest cost diri, kani siya tong beginning, unya gipangita kay current service cost man, so manay siya question mark. And then ay actuarial loss. Okay. Then ay benefits paid. Okay, kita ka na benefits paid. So therefore, ipang-plot nimo tong mga amounts unya, totalo nimo si debit ug si credit. Kung asay mas labaw, mo imong kopyaon sa debit ug sa credit. So for example, for this one, pila kanima siya question mark, di ba? So 120 plus given man siya 120 plus 12 plus 10. Sakto ba? 120 plus 12 plus 10. So di ba 142. Okay, so 142. So diri po dapat 142. Ay, sorry. 142 kan pila man ni siya. 172 din ni siya day. Mas labaw pa day si debit. Okay, so 142 og si 172. Okay. So therefore, kung labaw pa si debit kaysa si credit, so the balancing figure is naa diri sa credit. So mo to siya si current service cost. So dapat 172 sad ni siya diri. 172, 172. Okay, for example, dire 172, 172. So, ang balancing figure is 30,000. Nga, kung nagamit ka sa computational nga form, so mo to siya mag-work back ka sa formula. Okay. Then, how about for the FVPA? Okay, so your plan assets include the assets held by a long-term employee benefit fund, qualifying insurance policies. So the assets held by a long-term employee benefit fund are assets held by an entity that is separate from the employer. So di ba na ay third party nga tig-hold sa fund. Then, a qualifying insurance policy is an insurance policy issued by an insurer that is not related to the employer. So, both the assets held by a long-term employee benefit fund and proceeds from a qualifying insurance are intended solely for paying employee benefits, are not available to the employer's creditors even in bankruptcy, and cannot be returned to the employer when the amount returned represents surplus. So, kani siya kay, para mag-yun siya sa employee benefits, dapat dili na siya gamiton for other purposes. Even pambayad sa mga creditors kung mabankrupt ang company. Kaya para man sa employee, ang purpose nga nung gi-establish na nga fund is pambayad man sa empleyado. So, dapat ang iyaha pong mahimong gamit later on is pambayad yun sa employee. So, plan assets exclude labot unpaid contributions due from the employer. Okay, itong mga wala pa na bayaran, as well as the non-transferable financial instruments issued by the employer and held by the fund. So plan assets are reduced by any liabilities of the fund that do not relate to employee benefits. So this time, the composition includes beginning balance. Kay asset man siya, so mag-start ta diri. Beginning, return on plan asset that will increase your FVPA, and then add contributions to the fund kay madugangan man imuhang plan assets, and then credit ang benefits paid. Okay, so that would be your ending balance. For example, you have plan assets January 1, so naa siya sa debit side. Return, di ba dani siya sa debit side. Contribution, debit side. Then, benefits paid, credit side. Di ba, dali ra kayo mag-answer pag nga nila po lang given. Pero pag di ka nagsagol-sagol, magtagbaw na po kaog, pamik out sa numbers. Okay, so therefore, so the balancing figure is the ending balance. This is your ending balance, 282,000. Okay, next is determining the ultimate cost of a defined benefit. So the ultimate cost of a defined benefit plan may be influenced by many variables such as final salaries, employee turnover, and mortality, employee contributions, medical cost trends. Diba, these are your katong mga demographic and financial nga mga factors. The ultimate cost of the plan is uncertain, and this uncertainty is likely to persist over a long period of time. So to measure the present value of the post-employment benefit obligations, it is necessary to apply the actuarial valuation method, which is mentioned earlier, diba, tong projected unit credit method, or to attribute benefit to periods of service and to make actuarial assumptions. So itong ganiha, mga ano pa to siya, mga warm up to siya kay mga dali raman to siya ma-compute basta kabalo lang ta sa formula, di ba? Kani siya may naay analysis na, so marag ano na ni siya, intermediate level na ni siya. Okay, so the projected unit credit method, also known as the accrued benefit method prorated on service, batas kay pangan, accrued benefit method prorated on service, or benefit over years of service method. Okay? Benefit over ba siya, or benefit or years? Benefit over years siguro siya. So this sees each period of service as giving rise to an additional unit of benefit entitlement and measures each unit separately to build up the final obligation. So the retirement benefit here is measured based on future salary levels, projected salaries of the employees, and assumptions are made to estimate the salary level of employees on their expected retirement date. Okay, example, ABC Company agrees to provide a lump sum retirement benefit to employees equal to the 6% of the final salary for each year of service. So, sa kada tuig nga nagtrabaho, siya makadawat siya og 6% sa final salary. So, the salary level on January 1, 20X1 is 3 million. Okay, di ba? Sana all. Annual salary increase starting 20X2 is 3%. And then service years before retirement from January 1, 20X1 to December 31, 20X5. So therefore, ano na ni siya? Kani nga empleyado is 5 years na lang ang kuwang para mo retire. So may retirement there sa Philippines. I think 65 na siguro, 65 or 60. I'm not sure. So prior ni siya sa iyang retirement. So this mo ni siya service years before retirement. So 20X1 man sila nanukad. So you have discount rate per year is 10%. So for simplicity, this ignores additional adjustment on the probability that the employee may leave. Okay. So assuming mo continue gyud siya og trabaho para di lang gubot. So how much is the ultimate cost of the defined benefit plan or the lump sum payment? Unsa man kuno madawat ni employee after sa service years? So go ta dayon sa answer. Okay, so the lump sum payment is equivalent to 6% of the final salary. Final salary after Sa man siya, pila ka years. After 20x1, 1x1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so sa x1, so mauna na siya 3 million. So therefore, x2, 3, 4, 5. So na 4 years nga nag-increase siya by 3%. Kaya ang year 1 kay 3 million man. So year 2 is 3 million times 1.03, 103%. So man na siya diri 4 times siya 1, 2, 3, 4. Dili siya 5 kay kung 5 na siya imuhang ibutang nga 103 ana maabot na siya 6 years kay kani siya ka year 1 man ni. Kani year 1 man na siya. Kani year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. Di ba? Kutob raman ta to 20x5. So, muna siya kani iyahang final salary. Pila man siya in the future. Di ba? Yung increase siya by 376,526 after 5 years or within 5 years. Multiply by 6%. This is your, asa to gani ha? Di mo gawas. Gani. Sa maning, okay, 6%. Kaya mao man siya ang benefit. So, you have 202,592. But, di ba, this is based on, for every year of service man. For every year of service, so there are times 5. So, iyahang madawat ini ka, retire niya is 1,012,960. Okay, di ba? Question B. How much are the current service costs in 20x1, 2, 3, x4, and x5? Pila ko ng current service costs. So, to compute for the current service cost, so magamit at o present value factors. Okay, so you have factor 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. So, year 4, ano siya? Di ba dapat unta, the usual manner we get the present value factor is following year kay year 1 or period 1, 2, 3, 4. Kani siya kay 5 years man siya. So, ano siya? 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, paatras. Okay, so the end period in the PV of one factor used in December 31, 20x1 is 4 because the expected date of retirement is 4 years from December 31, 20x1. And then for 20x5, it's 0 because retirement date falls on this date. So, paatras siya. So, may timanan. Basta pag maghiskot og PBO, kay pa atras. Imbis na dapat diri ang 0.909. So, dito siya sa second to the last period. So, ang last period would be 1. Okay, so you have 1, ya 0.909, ya 0.82 hangtod ani. Buhaton, di ba na-compute naman to nato ganiha, to yahang retirement benefit. Okay, per year of service. So that is also the amount we're going to place here. Multiply it by the factors. And then okay, so this would be the current service cost for every year. Okay? So, it will be computed at each year end because employees earn benefits only after they have rendered service. So, work first, pay comes later. Question C. What is the requirement in question C? Okay. How much is the balance of the PV of DBO at each year end? PV of DBO. Okay. So, how to compute the PV of DBO? So, di ba, each year is 202,592 and yung accumulated naman ni si DBO. So, that's why, in the following year, di ba, this is year 1, unya, ma-accumulate na po siya in year 2, duha naman to katuig, so 405. So, adan siya, adan another 202,592, adan na po another 202,592, and so on. And then multiply by the factor. The same gihapon ang style adtong sa current service cost nga paatras siya 43210. And then this is the present value of the DBO after year end for each year end. So in the future mahimo na siyang Okay? Ano siya? 1,112,960, which is ang katong 5 years nga 200 to 592. Okay, di ba mo ito itong i-compute ganiha? Sa babaw. Okay, this is the lump sum retirement benefit. Okay, so remember the following: current service cost, benefit entitlement per year times the PV factor, and then PV of DBO, accumulated benefits times the PV factor. Okay, the second one is katong attributing. Kani siya kay mag-analyze gid mo ani sa statement. Okay, you have benefits are attributed to the periods of service using the plan formula. Meaning, naana sila'y kaugalingong formula si company. Unsaon siya pag-compute sa iyahang retirement benefit. However, if benefits are materially higher for services rendered in the later years than in earlier years, the benefits are attributed on a straight line basis. Unsa na materially higher, ma'am, lahi ra kaayo ang formula sa katong later years, or layo ra ang formula sa later years kumpara sa earlier years. So benefits are attributed to current period in order to determine the current service cost, and the current and prior periods in order to determine the PV of DBO. So to be enlightened, let us use the illustration. Okay. ABC Company's defined benefit plan provides a lump sum benefit of 10,000 each year of service payable on retirement. So, case 1, benefit attributed to each period of service. Mr. Juan is an employee of ABC Company. How much benefit is attributed to each year of service? Kung man siya nga na lump sum benefit of 10,000 for each year. So, therefore, kada tuig, 10,000 nga madawat. Case 2, Mr. Juan has rendered service in year 1. How much is the current service cost? So, the current service cost is 0.683013. So, gi-assume ni siyang katong 5 years gihapon siya. Diba tong 5 years prior to retirement. Eh, kung lahi siya, kung 6 years po siya, so lahi po tong factor nato, diba? So, 0.683013 times 10,000. So, you have 6,830.13. So, kani siya, parehas na siya assumption ganiha atong 5 years prior to retirement. Case 3, present value of defined benefit obligation. So, Mr. Juan has rendered services in years 1 to 3. How much is the balance of the PV of DBO at the end of year 3? So, di ba tong 0.6, 10,000 times 3 years, and then pila to ka tuig 3 years, balik ta aning table dere kay na atoy factor. Okay, kani siya 1 2 3, sakto ba 0.826. So you have, di ba nga nito siya pag-compute, i-multiply nimo siya by 3. Kay 3 years naman ang nilabay, kadi ba na annual benefit on 10,000 times 3 times the factor. Okay, balik ta sa okay, dara. 10,000 times 3 times the factor. So, this is your accumulated benefits times PV factor, 24,793.38. Okay, illustration 2. ABC Company's defined benefit plan provides a monthly pension of 2% of the final salary for each year of service. Mr. Juan, an employee, has an estimated final salary of 30,000 per month. How much benefit is attributed per month ni siya? Katong example ganiha kay year, di ba? At the start of the year to na 3 million. That's for 1 year. Kani kay per month. So therefore 30,000 times 2% per month times 12 months in a year. Pwede nimo ni siyang 1 year, so 30,000 times 12 months para ko makuha ang yearly times 2%. So, this is 7,200. So, pila man iya madawat nga benefit for each year of service, 7,200. ABC Company's defined benefit plan provides a benefit of 10,000 for each year of service. So, provide na excluding service before the age of 25. Miss Jane, age 21, is an employee of ABC Company. How much benefit is attributed for the service rendered by Miss Jane during the current period? Diba? Excluding service before the age of 25. 21 years old man siya, so wala pa siya nag-25. So, naa na ba siya benefit nga madawat? Wala pa. Okay? Wala pa man siya nag-25. So, dapat naa sila age requirement. Then we have illustration 4. ABC Company's defined benefit plan provides a lump sum benefit of 1 million that vests after 10 years of service. The plan provides no further benefit for subsequent service after 10 years of service. Pagkahuman sa, wala siya niingon nga na retirement nga age, pero ingon na siya after 10 years. How much benefit will be attributed for each year of service? So, 1 million divided by 10 years on a straight line basis. Yeah. So, 100,000 per year. Okay, each year may question. ABC Company's defined benefit plan provides a lump sum retirement benefit of 2 million to all employees who are still employed at the age of 55 after 20 years of service. So, muna siya ito akong ingon nga niya nga mag-analyze, magunahula jud ka ani. Okay. Employed kuno siya at the age of 55 after 20 years of service. So, kung nagtrabaho paghihapon siya nga 55 years old na siya, unya 20 years na sad. So, pila may minimum age niya? Pila may minimum age para ma-meet ng 20 years of service unya naa paghihapon sa company at the age of 55? Pila man? Pila may minimum age para mo qualify? Pila may edad? Okay, at least 35. Diba? Kaya 35 plus 20 years, so minimum, minimum ba to? Oh, minimum. At least 35 years old siya, diba? Kung 34 siya, edi maabot siya 21, qualified gihapon siya, diba? So, mula pa sa 20 years, okay, gihapon. So, pinakasaga, dapat para ma-entitled siya, dapat di ay kay 35 years old until mo retire. Okay? Or, other option, who are still employed at the age of 65, regardless of their length of service. So, kani, na ay minimum age of 35 and 20 years of service. Mataas-taas na, no? 20 years of service. Kamo, pila man katuig ang inyuhang ma-perceive sa inyong self nga nagstay mo sa usa ka company. Do you think, maabot sad mo nga na mga 20 years of service? Years of service. Okay. Sa ako, akong first job. This is my first job and by November, by November pohon, I think ika 10th year, 10th year na nako of service. Okay, so you have 35, okay, 20 ang iyahang years of service. Ang other option or man siya, they are still employed at the age of 65. So 10 years later sa ilahang to kaning 55, regardless of their length of service. So na siya, senior na gyud, di ba, ani nga time. Case 1, Mr. 1 is hired at the age of 33. What is the attribution period of Mr. 1's benefit and how much benefit is attributed each year? 33 siya na himong employee. Okay, kanus aman siya ma-entitled? Dapat, 'di ba? At least 35 para mo qualify siya sa first nga requirement or katong first nga qualification. So, the attribution period is when Mr. 1 is age 35 until 55 para sure nga qualified siya for the post-employment benefit. So, it is where Mr. Juan reaches the retirement age of 55 and na-complete na niya ang 20 years of service. So, therefore, pila tong panghatag? 2 million lump sum. So, for every year of service, that's 2 million divided by 20, that's 100,000 per year. No benefit is attributed to the periods before Mr. Juan reaches age 35. Kaya again, di ba, dapat man at least 35 siya. Okay? At least 35 siya. Pinakaubos na ang 35 para ma-entitle sa benefit. Pinakaubos. So, pwede, pinaka-ubos na siya, di ba? Sakto ba? At least ba to siya? Okay? At least or maximum. Maximum mga age. Dili kay kung mo ano siya, at least pa siya or maximum. Minimum, maglibog mo ba sa term ani? Basta kay dapat 35 siya para ma-entitle siya sa 20. Okay? So, kay 33 man siya, kung 33, wala pa. Magsugod pa siya sa 35. Okay. So, no benefit is attributed for the periods before siya mag-35. Kaya dapat man 35 until 55. Kaya kung sayo sa siya nag-work, dahil sayo siya nag-work, tayo 33 siya, pero wala siya niabot sa 55. Kita nag 20 years siya, nag 33 plus 20. So, nag 53 siya. Pero wala siya ni padayon, wala siya ni abot og 55 years old dito. It's either ni ano siya, ni resign ba siya or wala siya kabot na ng idara. Okay? So, dili niya ma-meet tong requirement nga dapat 55 years old. Niguntop dito, naka-20 na ka nga tuig dito. Mana nga di siya pwede, dili ma-qualify kung 33 years old siya. So, mag-watch siya og mag-35. Kanya dapat tuloy-tuloy until age of 55. Kung ano siya, kung na-employ siya 33, and then ipadayon siya, nakaabot gihapon siya sa 55, so naabot na siya, pila man siya, 55 minus 33, naabot na siya 22 years. Ang 20 years lang gihapon ang kwentahon. Walay labot tong 2 years nga iyahan lang na advance. Okay, again, that is kumupadayan gyud siya. Okay, pero kung nihunong siya after 20 years, wala pa siya naabot of 55, wala gihapon, diba? Dili gihapon completed tong 20 years of service. Miss Jane is hired at the age of 45. Kani 45 niya, 55. So, ano na lang siya, kanang, pila man ka years na, 45, 10, di ba? Kung na-employed siya sa company, 45, unya tong retirement 55. Pero na may second option, dapat naa siya at the age of 65. Nya kung 45 to 65 kay 20 years man na siya. Okay? So, nagihapon siya kanang attribution years, di ba? Kaingon man siya nga still employed at the age of 65. So, the attribution period is the years when Miss Jane is aged 45 to 65. So, it is when Miss Jane gets past the retirement age of 55 and also has rendered 20 years of service. So, the benefit is 100,000, 2 million divided by 20 years attributed to each of those years. So, it will accrue immediately in the year of employment. Similar case apply to other employees employed between 35 to 45. Kung 36 years old na siya, unya ni-retire siya until 65, okay, ma-apel gihapon to siya. Okay? So, motto siya, dapat 35, at least 35 years old. Sakto day, at least 35 years old. Hindi pong tatong minimum yung maximum. So, at least 35. Kaya 35 until 45, carry pag gihapon. Kani, 55 years old man siya na-hire. Okay, di ba? Kani siya kay 55. Pila na lang may katuig ang kuwang para ma 65. 65 man itong murag pinaka-maximum nila, di ba? Nga criteria. 55 siya na hard. Gaya siya na pasig mga ni managerial position nga na. Pwede man gihapon. So, what is the attribution period for Mr. Lakay's benefit and how much benefit is attributed? 55 niya until retirement. Siya na po magbalhin-balhin pag yun siya, di ba? So, 55 to 65. So, therefore, 10 years lang siya. So, the service beyond the age of 65 does not lead to material amount of further benefits. So, the benefit will be 2 million divided by 10 years attributed to each of those years. So, 200,000 every year. So, therefore, 2 million gihapon siya after kung imong totalon ang 10 years. Okay, another example. ABC Company's post-employment medical reimburses 40% of the employee's post-employment medical costs if the employee leaves after more than 10 years but less than 20 years of service. Nanapod ning mga ngalingan ni, di ba? More than 10 years but less than 20 years. More than, so dapat greater than 10 but lesser than 20. Okay? Less than man siya, so dapat dili 20. Diba? Kay less than man, di man less than or equal to. So, 10 to, not po siya 10, kaya dapat man more than. More than 10, less than 20. 50% of those costs if the employee leaves after 20 or more years of service. Okay, so 40% ko no, if the employee leaves, umuhawa siya, after naka-render na siya og more than 10 years. Pero dili mo lapas og, sige, or dapat less than 20 years. And 50% if after 20 years or more of service. So, lahi siya bracket. So, pag ganit, more than 10 but less than 20, so 40%. So, pag mulive po siya more than 20 years, then that is 50%. So, mas dako-dako. Okay. So, how much the benefit attributed? Okay. So, ABC Company attributes, okay, that's 40% divided by 10 years. That's for the gap. Okay. Kani siya, first 10 years. So, 40% divided by 10. So, that's 4% per year of service. Okay, sakto ba? Per year of service. And, remaining 10 years, okay, pag, okay, first 10 years. If then leaves after more than 10 years, but less than 20 years. Okay, sorry, day. Kanili ay first 10 years, kani siya, from 0 to 10 years. Ba 0 to 10 years. Okay, 0 to 10 years. And then 20 years. Okay, so therefore, kung nanarbaho siya sa sud sa 20 years, okay, sakto ba niya siya? Sakto sa 20 years. Okay, so, this is the expected medical cost to each of the first 10 years of service. So, that's 40% divided by 10 years. So, that's 4% per year. And then, katong remaining, katong iyahang difference here, diba, 50% o sa 40%, pag mula pa siya og 20 years, so na ay 50% siya. So, ang difference niya kay 10%. So, 10% divided by 10 years for the remaining 10 years of service. So, that would be 10% divided by 10. So, that's 1% for every year. Okay. So, next example, ABC Company's post-employment medical plan reimburses 10% of an employee's post-employment benefit medical costs. Same lang gihapon to siya. More than 10, less than 20. 50% of the cost if the employee leaves after 20 or more years of service. Muhawa siya after 20 years. Tanawa ang ilahang gap. Diba mo itong i-mention ganiha itong materially higher. Na siya gap, dako sila og difference. 40%. So, the service in later years lead to materially higher benefit, the benefits shall be attributed on a straight line basis. For employees expected to leave after 20 or more years, so kanimuhang basihan. Okay. So 50% divided by 20 years. So 2.5% for the first 20 years. 'Di ba? Kung manarbaho siya from period 0, 10, and then 20, niya ani pa siya mo resign. Okay. So for the entire 20 years, so that is 50%. So that would be 2.5 per year. So 20 years is used because the minimum period over the employees become entitled is to the higher benefit is 50%. After this period, the service will no longer lead to material amount of further benefits. Okay, so kani siya diri bahinon siya mura ba siya katong na yung mga probability, di ba nga, for this portion kay kani ang iyahang rate, and then for the remaining nga portion kay kani nga rate. Okay, so man siya diri. Okay. For employees expected to live between 10 to 20 years. So kung ani pud siya 10 to 20 years, ay diri nga part, so pila man ang iyahang mahimong benefit. So katong 10%. Again, kaning letter A is katong muhawa after 20 years. So kato siya 50% katong higher nga benefit. What if anin na siya sa 10 to 20 years? 10% man to. So 10% divided by 10 years. So this is for the first 10 years. No benefit is attributed after the 10th year until the expected date of leaving. Okay. So again, mo leave siya between 10 to 20 years. So that's 0 to 10. Yeah, 20. Ug ani siya mo resign, aning dapita. Okay. So ang tagaan lang kay kanira pong period nga first 10 years. Kay ani man siya mo resign. So man siya 1% per year. Mao ni siya ang 10%. So 1% per year kay 10% divided by 10. Okay, no benefit is attributed, of course, kay muhawa man siya, diba? Wala na siya benefit. If the employee is expected to leave within 10 years, again, of course, wa po siya madawat nga benefit kay dapat man muhawa sila after 10 years, diba? Yung man dire, after 10 years. So, therefore, mag-minimum og 10 years service kung ganahan ka makadawat og post-employment benefit. Based ani nga scenario. Okay. So, additional concepts. Okay. Compute the net defined benefit liability or asset on January 1. Okay. And net defined benefit or liability on December 31. Okay. So, to get the answer letter A. Excuse me. So, you look at the beginning balance. So, 1 million and 1,200,000. Mas dako ang ato ang obligation. So, this is a liability. So, deficit. At the end of the year, kay computon pa. Kaya di man di siya given. So, therefore, computon pa nato si FVPA ending balance o si PV of DBO ending balance. So, for the PV of DBO, so, plot. Okay, so this is 1,570,000 for FVPA. So, ipang butang tong items involved. So, at the end of the year, so we have 1,100,000 and 1,570,000. So, the net defined benefit liability is a deficit of 470,000. So, note, neither the PV of DBO or the FVPA is presented in the statement of financial position. Dili ni sila makita ha, although naatay kanang T-account ni they are only disclosed in the notes. Only the net defined benefit, liability, or asset is presented because this one would be a memorandum rapon nga entry kanisiya. Net defined benefit assets. So you have the following. At the end of the year, Case 1, the present value of economic benefits available in the form of refunds from the plan and reductions in future contributions is 250. What is the net defined benefit liability or asset? So get the difference. There's 200,000 mas dako ang ato ang asset. So there is a surplus. And then we have asset ceiling. This is the present value of refunds and reductions that is given in the problem. So this is your asset ceiling. So the net defined benefit asset is the lower amount, which is the surplus. Diba katong nasa introduction ganiha. What if the present value of the economic benefits available in the form of refunds, therefore your asset ceiling is 150. Mas lower siya, diba? So therefore kanimuhang gamiton. Okay? An adjustment is needed to decrease the surplus to the asset ceiling. So there's an adjustment of 50,000. Okay, then you have, okay. So kindly go through the examples ng aniniya kay mga sabotable. Okay, I will show you another. Okay, tanaw naman yun yung mga examples sa ni class ha. Naman po siya examination. Kan nagtanaw mo po sa si paper examination. Naman po siya explanation. Kaya anita sa kaning kay Valix para ma-compare na to kay basig sa problems lahi ang mga terms nga gamiton nga basig maglibog ba inig answer na so man ganin siya lahi man gud ang term gigamit. Okay, so kani siya mas short ang iyahang explanation diri. Okay. Again, the sub-entity maintains information that does not appear in the FS, only memorandum records. Diba itong gingon ganiha, you cannot find the FVPA o the PBO, mato siya itong DBO ha, itong defined benefit obligation. Mato akong gingon ganiha nga, na yung mga lahi-lahi nga term. So, kung makita ninyo ni nga PBO na siya, maupo to siya sa DBO. So, di ba, i-disclose siya, pero ang makita ra nimo sa record sa statements or sa SFP is katong net na, di ba, tong surplus o katong deficit. Okay, so FVPA is a source of fund, PBO or the defined benefit obligation is, okay, so on. So, two items are kept only in memorandum records only. So, mato akong gingon ganiha, if the FVPA is more than the PBO, diba, this is your surplus. So, this is called as prepaid benefit cost. Okay? Prepaid benefit cost. If it is less than, diba, mo ni siya tong deficit. Okay, and this is your surplus. So, in case you will be able to see these accounts, mo na siya pasabutan na ha. Net, di ba? Mo ni siya tong net defined benefit asset or net, sakto ba? Net defined benefit asset. Net defined benefit liability. So, maura na siya nga mga term. Okay, so naatay gitawag ani nga underfunding and overfunding. Okay, so example, the entity made a contribution of 450,000 to the defined benefit plan. Then the current service cost, usa ra ka buok ang component ato di ba na amon toy past service cost, current service cost. So kani siya usara. So, this is your employee benefit expense. Kung i-compare nato ni siya sa gigamit nga term ni Milan. Okay, ang sa to siya gigamit ani retirement benefit expense. Atong ano ha, side by side kay para ano siya, maklaro. Sa naman to siya, yung slow mo. Saan na to na entry? kanina retirement benefit expense niya employee benefit expense. Kani siya more specific nga pang retirement kay pang retirement man jud ni siya kay post employment man. So employee benefit expense 500,000 and nag-credit og cash kay nagbayad man siya sa fund. Nag-contribute siya sa fund. So 450,000. So the balancing figure is the prepaid or accrued benefit ko. So, gi-combine siya para usara ka account ang gamiton. Wala na another term for asset, another term for liability. So, kung nasa diri sa credit side, then this is accrued benefit cost. Kung nasa sa debit side, prepaid. Okay. So, again, okay, the component of the benefit expense 500 and mas dako iyang gibayad. Okay, dako yung gi-contribute. So, nanubra by 100. So, muna siya tong surplus, di ba? Surplus. Okay. So, this is your funding, di ba? This is your funding. And then, your obligation is lesser. So, muna siya prepaid. So, na ay overfunding by 100,000. So, balancing figures, si prepaid or accrued benefit cost. If it's a debit balance, it is a prepaid benefit cost. If it's a credit balance, it's the liability. For example ni Milan, di ba, gilahi niya tong net defined benefit asset. Yeah, the net defined benefit liability. Okay, another example here. Ang kalahian ani niya sa example ni Milan is naa siya contribution to the plan nga item. I think wala siya dito. Na ba dito? Or wala? Okay, murag ano raman to siya? Benefits paid raman to naa, diba, sa formula. So, kanitanawan na ay contribution to the plan. So, unsay buhaton kung na ay contribution to the plan. Okay, this is the computation. So, mas short sa yung marag, mas direct siya. Diba kani siya, diba, mauni siya tong service cost, para lang matandi na to ba? Service cost, og niya kanitong interest cost. Correct? Diba? So, tanawa siya. So, katong ganiha, gitag sa tagsa, tong service cost, lahi nga component niya, tong isa, tong interest cost. Asa man na siya dapit, ma'am? Yeah, so to dapit. Okay, dara. Okay. Service cost, net interest. Net interest, dili kay interest cost. Net interest. Okay. Net interest. So, this is your employee benefit expense. Itong sum nilang duha. Tanaw na to diri ha. Kani siya. Diba ang sum ani? Pila ni siya? This is 340. This is your retirement benefit expense. Tanaw diri sa entry. Diba? Retirement benefit expense. Diri, ang pangan niya, diba, kay employee benefit expense, which is the retirement benefit expense. Then, katong actual return plan asset, interest income on FVPA. Okay. Kani siya. Diri na siya. Then, remeasurement gain. Okay. Dahil sa problem, mangutan na siya, how much is the remeasurement gain or loss? So, to compute that, mao ni siya. Okay. Actual return o niya ang interest income on FVPA. Okay. Tanaw na to diri sa PICAS. Okay. Actual return on plan asset, and then you have interest income. Dala si remeasurement gain on plan asset. Then, actuarial loss due to increase in PBO. Dara, actuarial loss. So, kani siya tong mga remeasurements. Net remeasurement. Di ba mauni siya tong mga remeasurements. Okay, so 600,000. Nganong loss man ni siya, ma'am? Yan, tanawa. Mas dako man si actuarial loss. Okay, pero tanawa, gi-add na siya, di ba? Gi-add. Di ba ito kung giingon ganiha? Ganiha, gi-minus. Ngano minus man ni siya? Because mga advantage man ni siya, gain. Nya po ka ni siya, gain po ni siya. Matawag po siyang gain. Nya, although loss ni siya, pero inig-compute sa imuhang defined benefit cost is, ano siya, kanang masama siya sa imuhang, add siya sa imuhang employee benefit expense. So, this is your total defined benefit cost, 2,300,000. Sa example ganiha, ang defined, tanaw diri ha, total defined benefit cost is, now gi-minus, diba? 340 minus 150 kay mga gains man ni siya. So, this is your defined benefit cost. Diri, kay gi-add man siya, gi-add man ni silang duha, so mo ni siya 2,300,000. Kung ano pa ni sila, mga gains pa ni siya, gideduct na siya. Then, you have contribution to the plan, 1 million, and this is your accrued benefit cost during the year. So, credit ni siya, credit siya nga balance. Yun sa siya pag-entry dire. Employee benefit expense, 1,700,000, di ba kato ganiha? Then, remeasurement loss. Tanaw diri yun sa siya pag-entry niya. Remeasurement of defined benefit liabilities kayo, no? Credit side. Diba? Kay gains man ni siya, mga gains. Ay, mga gains. So, credit side siya. Pero kani, kay loss man siya, diba? To 600, didili siya gibutang sa debit. So, mas mubo iyahang account title. Credit cash. Okay, credit cash. Kaya naman ito gibayaran. Asa man nagikan, ma'am? Contribution to the plan. Dara, si contribution to the plan. And then, ang balancing figure, katong i-compute ganiha, katong accrued benefit cost during the year. So, you have 1,300,000. Okay? Okay. So, nga na siya sa entry. Then, reconciliation. Okay. So, how to get your FVPA? Kani siya computational nga form. Okay. So, you have kani. Nabi contribution to the plan. Ganyan, tanawin sa nato ha. Okay. Wala. Diri. Okay. So, pag may contribution to the plan, add siya. Okay. So, man siya FVPA. So, man siya January 1. Contribution to the plan. Okay. Interest income. Remeasurement gain. Onya, benefits paid. Okay. So, this is your 1231. Okay. Simple approach. Na siya simple approach. Actually, iyaharang gi-combine si kani. Kana siya. Mauna siya si actuarial return. Actuarial return. Kanong actual return. Kay diba ganiha, si actual return, gi-minus si interest income. Diba mo ni siya tong si remeasurement gain. Ganiha. So, mo na siya shortcut. So, kung actual return is already given, so, pwede ni mo siyang ditso na siya. Okay. Kay sum man ni sila sa actual return. PBO, so, current service cost, maora ang components. Current service cost, past service cost, benefits paid, actuarial loss. Kung actuarial gain siya, diba, na siya sa debit nga side. Tanaw dire. Okay. Sa FVPA, balik itong sa FVPA. Okay, wala siya contribution to the fund. Then, at the end of the year, so you have 6,300,000 PVO. So, there is a deficit. Deficit by 3,300,000. Okay. So if you're going to prepare a worksheet, so this is how it will look like. Okay, this would be your journal, general journal, employee benefit expense, net remeasurement loss, credit cash, credit prepaid. Sorry, this is accrued benefit cost. And this would be the balances. Okay, so journal entries. Okay, so projected benefit obligation. So for worksheet purposes ni siya. Okay. So maniyahang mga journal entries. So to record the current service cost, employee benefit expense, projected benefit obligation, past service cost, but it will increase your employee benefit expense. Then to record the interest expense on PBO, so the employee benefit expense, projected benefit obligation, to record the interest income, fair value of plan assets, employee benefit expense, contribution to the plan, FVPA, credit cash, benefits paid, so on. Pero this is for worksheet purposes. Kaya again, in the statement, ang makita ra gyud nimo is katong net na net defined benefit asset niya, net defined benefit obligation. So kani siya para ra makuha or makompute nato pila ang balances. This is on memorandum entry ra ni siya, memorandum entry or for disclosure nga purposes.
If you like this video, don't forget to click like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to be updated with the latest video lessons. Thank you for watching.